when we first wrote it, me and my writing partner Dave, before we turned it in to Judd, it was about 90 pages of just like fart jokes. And then Judd weaved it into this beautiful story of, of a family overcoming a tragedy.
I like your tattoos. What are those numbers on your arm?
Oh, that's the date my dad died. He was a fireman. Died in a fire 17 years ago.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Don't be, it's fine.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Not your dad.
Crush a bit, little bit, roll it up, take a hit.
Compared to your previous work, which has been comedy with drama included, this one does operate as a bit more of a drama that also has elements of comedy. And I'm curious just about the evolution of that, and if that's something that you went into the project knowing, given the fact that there is some really heavy material here, or if that was just a natural evolution of the entire process.
I think I'm always trying to figure out a way to make a movie like Terms of Endearment or Broadcast News. Those are a lot of my favorite movies, Barry Levinson movies and Cameron Crowe movies. And I probably, have leaned on the comedy side harder. A lot of those movies, I think, required that. And, this was just a chance to really honor the dramatic story. And I thought, well, I'll let the comedy tell me, in what amount it should be present. So I really focused on the drama. I knew everyone was funny that I was working with, and we were playing and improvising. And in editing, we decided what that tone ultimately would be, because Bill Burr is funny and Marisa's funny, and everybody in the movie can bring comedy, but we didn't want it to ruin the story. We didn't want you to feel like we're reaching for a joke when we weren't serving the story.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was definitely more of a drama than a comedy. And I think, for the story, just to see how a tragedy affects this family. And, I just thought it was, I think Judd will agree, it was just important to show, what that's actually like. There's not gonna be a ton of, when we first wrote it, me and my writing partner Dave, before we turned it in to Judd, it was about 90 pages of just like fart jokes. And then Judd weaved it into this beautiful story of, of a family overcoming a tragedy. And I just think, that was the appropriate way to show this film.
You ever think about putting on the jacket? Why would you even ask me that?
What's wrong with being a fireman?
It's fine if you don't have kids, because you don't know if you're gonna come home or not, and then your kids are fucked up.
I kind of want to go back to your decision to sign on to this project, specifically knowing about your personal history as a firefighter. I'm curious if that was for you an incentive to sign on. Is it something that maybe gave you a bit of hesitance? Like what was the mental positioning of that as you were being told about this project?
Well, when I first heard about the project, I didn't know what it was about. All I knew was that Judd Apatow was doing a movie with Pete Davidson, and I wanted in. I really did. I said to my agents, what is it? Can I get, is there a part for me? And then when I heard what the story was about, that it was, based on Pete's real story, knowing his story, I was not hesitant at all. I really wanted in. And I've never played a firefighter on film. I was invited to the first read-through they had, and I wasn't a part of it then. But Judd, he just invited me. And later he gave me a call. He said, well, there is this part of the senior guy in the firehouse. It's, it's not that big of a part, but maybe we can turn it into something. I said, I'm in, please, yes.
Your character, Margie, has a really wonderful arc that she gets to play in this film because she experiences a reawakening of sorts, we very much see it through her relationship with Scott. And I'm just curious, hoping you can talk about just working with both Judd Apatow and Pete Davidson as you were kind of seeing Margie come back to life over the course of this movie.
Well, that's a lot of things. Yes, working with Judd was fantastic, really liberating, really great creative space. Probably what you think, a lot of laughs, just being in a really easy space with him. And I'm so proud of Pete and the fact that he really went deep into his own story. And hopefully, that's just a very vulnerable place to be. So hopefully he won't regret it.
Don't worry, Mom. I know your daughter got smart and went to college and abandoned us. But I'm still here. I'm gonna be here forever.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, can you talk about just, I mean, how you kind of metered how Margie kind of came back to life and kind of started coming out of her shell years after the death of her husband?
I didn't really meter it. I think Judd just, he put in that, he kind of did it externally. He did it with the house. He just did like a redecoration in the house. And so, you know, that's how you kind of see it manifest, and how shocked Scott is when he comes over, and how just he feels very displaced. And it was really, I think that he added that later on, actually. It wasn't even in there originally. So I think he realized that it needed to be kind of more highlighted more.
One thing that both Kelsey and Claire have in common when it comes to their relationships with Scott, Pete Davidson's character, is the fact that they have known him forever. Like, obviously, Claire is his sister, has known him her entire life. And with Kelsey, they have a childhood relationship. And as far as just kind of accessing those individual relationships, I'm curious just about your conversations with Pete Davidson and kind of how you figured out the years that they had together.
It was a really, really collaborative process between me, Pete, and Judd, in which, I mean, like, when I signed on to the project, we like knew that Kelsey was the girlfriend character, but that's kind of as far as we knew. So we really spent a lot of time like just workshopping like the arc of their relationship. You know, we decided together that, okay, we decided they've known each other since they were like 4 years old. That's something that we all decided together, along with all the other stuff. So yeah, it was a collaborative process.
Yeah, and I think also it being helpful that, I mean, I haven't known Pete for very long, and I mean, I met him like, I think like 6 years ago, and have known him a little bit over the years, but I don't know him very well. But I think doing those workshops and we did a lot of like improvising different fights we could have, and sort of like tried to figure out like what areas we would go into if we started fighting, and kind of having those fake fights so many times. When we did it for real, it was like, oh, we've literally had this conversation a million times because we had, I don't know, gone over it. And yeah, I mean, Pete's like, I don't know, he's right there with you acting. And I think Belle and I both like care about him personally too. So I don't know, it's easy to work with him and play that because it's, yeah.
Well, having a sister myself, we've had the same argument and fight hundreds of times also. So I imagine
right?
That just made it more natural.
You make everyone around you feel crazy. People are normal, then they hang out with you, and then they're fucking Jack Nicholson in The Shining or something.
Knowing that this is a semi-biographical film for Pete Davidson, and you are ensconced in the world of Staten Island, I'm also curious just about the people that you had the chance to meet over the course of making this film and how they wound up influencing your performances.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we like were hanging out with his family, like his mom and his sister and all of his childhood friends, like all of the time. And that made it feel so much more personal and special. And, you know, just when if you'd go onto set and like his like childhood friend would be like playing like the random extra in that scene. And it was just so nice to be around people who knew Pete just so well. And also for me, just being around Staten Island has really helped with my accent. Pete's mom has like a strong accent, I think, and so I took a lot of that from her.
I honestly, one of the most like incredibly intense moments is with you and Pete Davidson, where Scott is talking about his personal philosophy regarding firefighters and family.
Now let me tell you something, your dad was a hero, and heroes are necessary, and they should be allowed to have families.
And it is just like such a heartfelt moment. I'm hoping you can talk about your experience filming that scene.
Well, that was a privilege to do, you know, to be able to do a scene where I'm talking to Pete about his dad, about who his dad was. And first, you know, and like I say, it starts off very comedic. Like the guys are just telling these stories, these inappropriate stories. And my character lets it slip, you know, the story that he probably shouldn't be letting Pete's character know about. But of course he wants to know, because he wants to know who his dad was. And so my character gets to, you know, tell him, you know, like the darker side of him and the fun side of him and the wild side of him, but also the heroic side of him. And I think it's the first time in the film that Pete really allows himself to take it in, you know, because before that he had this sort of resentment that he lost his dad. Like maybe a firefighter shouldn't have kids, you know, and it's so unfair. But I think in that scene, he starts to understand, he starts to get it. He starts to see his dad as a real person. And so what an honor for me to, be in that scene with Pete.
During the hazing sequence, when he's in the firehouse, and specifically when Scott gets sprayed with the fire hose, which I'm curious, I could see that either being an amazingly fun day on set or being absolutely miserable. Can you talk about that experience?
I think, what Judd said before those scenes is, because it was the last scenes we shot, he said, thank you everybody for all that you've done on the film, and this is my gift to you. And that is a real fire hose, and it really hurts because it's primarily used to put out fires.
Sure.
And it really blew me off the bed. But it was so much fun to film, and it was so much fun to film with those guys.
I assume you got it in one take. It wasn't something that you were calling for safety?
Yeah, we actually did get that one take. Yeah,
we did.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good. It's for the best.
I just feel like everybody's always disappointed in me, and I never live up to anybody's expectations. Hey, thanks for listening to all this. You're one of the few people who treat me, like a person.
You're welcome.
That's awesome. And actually, just a really weird side note, but my mom actually grew up in Brooklyn and lived in a neighborhood with an Apatow pharmacy. I don't know if there's any connection there, but
that is true. My grandfather Leo and my grandma Belle owned a pharmacy in Brooklyn. My dad used to work there when he was a little kid, and I almost have never met anyone who has been there. And this is exciting.
There you go. That's awesome.